I'm joined with Koby Kushner from Athena Gold. Koby, thanks for joining us.
It's great to meet you in person.
Well, we actually did meet in person at the last Red Cloud event, but
we didn't do the interview though.
We didn't do the interview.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Athena Gold. We've had you on before over just a digital call.
We're just getting started then, eh?
Yeah. So what's the latest? What's the update on the company?
Quite a bit. I mean, we got our S4 approved. That's going to shareholder vote at the end of March. What that does is...
I was going to ask you, what's an S4?
mean? We're going to be a Canadian domiciled company. I think that's big. Removes the U.S. legends off of everything. It makes life easier to raise money here in Canada. That being said, we did close on $1 million raise in December. That was all hard dollars. And we did a program at our Excelsior Springs project. We returned and reported some wicked silver grades at different target areas. So going into this, we were always of the view, the Western Slope Zone is an amazing discovery, right? 4 grams over 52 meters that ended in mineralization in arguably the best mining jurisdiction in the world, Nevada, right? Mm-hmm. All within 100 meters to surface, all oxide. That's what you want. Mm-hmm.
For our audience, that makes it heap leachable, right?
Presumably, that's the goal. You need oxide. Oxide goes with heap leach, you're right. So look, we're early days. I'm not out here saying we have a heap leach mine, right? We have a discovery hole. But we were always of the view when we put together this data room before we decided to come into Athena that this Western Slope Zone is probably not, even though it's a wicked area, it has those amazing drill intercepts that there's probably better potential at the more looked over targets at Excelsior Springs. So, we reported silver grab samples actually of over 6.6 kilograms per ton from surface from an area that's never seen a drill hole ever. So that's exciting. We still have more results coming from that program that's going to be hitting the market. But I think what's really, really exciting me is this target in Red Lake. I think that the writing's on the wall. Well, I think that it's very likely that we'll come into something special there.
So you have a target in Red Lake.
Yeah.
Is there any historic drilling on it?
There's very, very minimal historic drilling, and it was long before this new interpretation of this part of Red Lake occurred. So very low exploration maturity here. I think to really test a greenfields target, you want to see at least 5,000 meters drilled on this. We're nowhere close to that. This is... what happened here, I used to work at Madsen, eh? I don't know if you knew that. I used to work at...
which is now part of West Red Lake.
That's right, yeah. So they're trying to put that back into production. But when I was there was a geologist who was doing her master's research on a project 10 kilometers west of us, okay? And she published her master's research, and this was after any drilling had been done, and she found out that there's Balmer rocks on this project. And why does that matter? Well, historically, most gold that's been produced in this famous gold camp occurs within 300 meters of the contact between 2 major rock groups, okay? Got Balmer rocks, Confederation rocks, where those rocks meet, okay? That's your sweet spot. Within 300 meters of that, but on the Balmer side, is where 96% of all ounces ever mined in this district occur. So she age-dated the rocks in what was historically all Confederation rocks, so people ignored it. This thing, very low exploration maturity, okay? She mapped out a 10-kilometer stretch of this contact. And why does it matter? Because at Madsen, that's also about a 10-kilometer stretch. And along that 10-kilometer stretch is 2.5 million ounces of 9 grams past production. Back in the day, Madsen was an amazing gold mine. Okay, and then there's another 2 to 2.5 million ounces sitting there in resources that West Red Lake is aiming to put back into production. So call that a 5 million ounce endowment along a 10-kilometer stretch. What's on the other half of that? So since we last spoke, we reported some grab samples that came right along this contact, right where it's supposed to be. 373 grams per ton gold, which to my knowledge is the highest grade surface grab samples ever publicly reported in this whole gold camp that's produced over 30 million ounces of gold. We've got a 10-kilometer stretch of it, and we're, this time next year, knock on wood, that we'll be drilling. So that's the plan.
So does that mean drilling this summer, the fall, the winter?
No, I'm not in the business of trying to rush to do a drill hole just because people want that.
Okay.
The worst thing you could do is prematurely kill a project just because shareholders want you to drill right away. We have geophysics done. We've got the LiDAR. We recently received the LiDAR data as well. Next thing we want to do is a till survey. We're doing that on 300 meters on either side of this contact that I'm talking about. Very tightly spaced till grid.
For our audience, what's a till survey?
Similar to a soil survey. We're doing it, you get a grid and you can make a little heat map. Okay, geochem, we want to pair the geochem with the geophysics. Okay, get all the information, get all of our homework done first.
Okay, so you get those geophysics from or geochem from a till sample. What's exciting to you? What do you want to see?
So I want to see anomalies come out of the till, and I want to know where we're going to prioritize drilling along this 10-kilometer stretch. That's a big stretch, and we want to poke minimum 5,000 meters over it. Okay. So we want to, as soon as the snow melts, we'll get out there and start doing the till. After we get all the results back from that, that's when we know where we'll place our drill pads. Okay,
so ideally we're going to see this time next year, if you and I are sitting down at Red Cloud, PDAC, pre-PDAC 2025, it's 2 days before PDAC. You're going to have some drill results, and we're going to be talking about how Koby is the next Andy Bowering, who sat down before you, hit some huge results, and
fingers crossed. We're going all in on this project, and you know, if there's no risk, there's no reward, and I like our odds right now. You know, we saw every few years there's an amazing discovery to come out of Red Lake, right? You know, maybe it was before our time, but Rob McEwen in the Gold Corp story, finding the high grade zone at the Campbell mine, right? That was reserve grades of 90 grams a ton. It made Gold Corp into a major gold producer. They're producing over 500,000 ounces at an average grade of 77 grams a ton in 2004. That's insane, insanely high grade. And then we saw Gold Eagle, and that was taken out by Gold Corp for $1.5 billion back in, I think that was 2008, 2009. And then we saw, most recently, Great Bear. That was taken out by Kinross for $1.8 billion. The royalty was taken out for another 200 or so million. So call that a $2 billion story. You know what's fun about that story is that people were skeptical when the Great Bear holes initially came out, right?
I know. I was told by every geo who wasn't invested in the project that there was no ore body. It was
and you know why? Because the rocks were historically mapped as all Confederation. So people didn't believe it. And people ignored it historically, even though there was some sniffs of gold there. And on our ground, historically, all mapped as Confederation. And we believe that there's Balmer and Confederation right there. So.
All right, well, Koby, I think that you've done a pretty good pitch. We're obviously shareholders. We've had the previous CEO on. We've had you on before. And I hope to be sitting here next year. You'll be wearing a suit from Harry Rosen, the most expensive suit they have, talking about your big drill results, and we'll be talking about how you're the next Rob McEwen this time next year.
Right on. All right. Thanks, Steve. Cheers.